Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Movie Trap. I am the first of your three hosts, Zach Powers.
I am the second of the three hosts, Russell Carlsen.
And I'm the third of three hosts, Christian Borup. Correctly ordered now.
Incorrectly ordered.
In reverse alphabetical.
That's reverse alphabetical.
Yeah.
But I thought that was the whole thing.
Order. That's an order.
I thought it was reverse alphabetical based off whoever it is that's doing the announcement. So then it's a clockwise pattern beyond it.
It's always clockwise, regardless of who is starting. It's always going to go in the same order. That's the idea. Alphabetical. Doesn't matter who's starting. So just, if it strikes 12, the clock goes back to 1. That is how clocks work.
Our movie trap theme is going to be one of these days, how to read a clock. Yeah. We'll fix your movies. It'll be like high noon.
We'll watch season 2 of Hannibal, and that'll be...
Right. And we'll have to watch all of 24, because there's a constant running clock.
Anyway, an analog clock, which is not particularly helpful in this particular...
That's true. Anyway, welcome to the Movie Trap. We are in the middle of our political thrillers theme chosen by Chris Borup. This would be movie number 2. To give you a quick rundown of how this is going to go down, each theme is chosen by a host, and then each host picks a movie. Chris previously chose The Parallax View, and for today's episode, it was my choice, and I chose All the King's Men.
With the special caveat that each of us also has 3 points to award to the other hosts if we see fit, and only if we see fit.
Correct.
Which will give them more voting power come the end of the round. Last episode, no points were awarded to anyone. We all did a shitty job.
Yeah, that's right.
On the Parallax View, everybody sucked.
Well, we know I did.
Well, I mean, maybe on this one, we'll be inspired to join the theme of the film since it's based off Huey Long, each man a king, distribute the wealth, I think was what his main slogan was. So, Carlsen, this was your pick, right?
Yes, it was. All the King's Men. And it's directed by Robert Rossen. Movie came out in 1949, based off the novel by Robert Penn Warren, which also won the Pulitzer Prize in 1947. Penn Warren always fought against the comparison against Huey Long. He said, it's inspired by Huey Long, but I think he was more upset at the criticisms he was being labeled, whether it was an apologia for Huey Long or if he was condoning the assassination of Huey Long. But before we get into all the spoiler fun, Zach, do you have a summary or do you want me to do the summary?
I could run through real quick the story of old Willie Stark. And I can also, after that's done, I think there's a few fun differences between the novel and the film adaptation.
Excellent.
That we could discuss too.
Excellent.
But first, the summary. So the film is sort of narrated in a Great Gatsby-esque style by a side character who's largely an observer to the main action, who admires the central character. Very similar to the Great Gatsby in that regard. Jack Burton is our narrator and semi-protagonist, our point of view character.
Very subtle last name, don't you think?
Yes, he comes from Burden's Landing. Yeah.
Well, the trivia fact about the original name from the original character is also a pretty on-the-nose pick. Yeah. We can get into that later.
So he is a rich kid who wants to make a name for himself and has been bouncing from job to job for a while when he becomes a journalist. And here's tell of an up-and-coming sort of populist figure in, I don't know if they ever named the state.
They don't name the state. They don't name the state.
In a
or what political party anybody actually belongs to.
Right.
You get a vague sense in terms of modern politics what parties people might be part of, but based off the time period, I think it was still shifting.
Politics of the time. I think,
for sure.
I think it's pretty clear that that Stark would have been an FDR New Deal Democrat.
Yeah. Maybe not like Huey Long.
Yeah. You're right. I mean, there is a little contradiction in what Huey Long believed.
Huey Long was a mercurial political figure.
Yeah. But he was a Democrat.
Yes, he was. In the South, not that surprising.
Yeah,
In
he
Louisiana.
was described as a dictator at the state level, one of the only successful dictators at the state level until he died. So yeah, very strange character. But keep going, Zach.
Regardless, he finds out about a fella in a small town in unnamed state who's causing sort of a political stir named Willie Stark, who has sort of some conflicts with the political machine that has run the state for some time.
The Tammany Hall, if you will.
Correct, yeah. There's a lot of men in back rooms with cigar scenes early in the film that represent the political machine. And this guy, he wants to do what's right for the everyman. He wants infrastructure. He wants to spread the wealth, all of these good sort of populist socialist ideas. And he decides when Burden comes down to interview him that he's going to run for treasurer of the state. And he is roundly defeated. And many people write it off as the end of Willie Stark. But Willie Stark does seem like a genuine family man, an honest fella who is truly looking out for the good of the common man at this point in the narrative.
Yeah, when he's first introduced, he won't even drink a beer. Like, he's offered a beer, and he's like, I'd rather have soda pop instead. And then he takes exception to the fact that the political glad-hander makes fun of one of the character, I believe the character named Sugar has a stutter. Yeah. And he has a very memorable line in there about, that, is essentially him saying, don't pick on people. But
he may stutter, but you don't say anything at all, I believe is the line.
It's a good setup for where he's going, yeah.
Yeah. So everybody writes him off after he loses his treasury race, but little do they know, Willie Stark begins to study law, spends the next few years becoming a lawyer, and begins to take up causes for the little guy after that. Often, like, there's scenes of him offering deals to people being like, you can pay me back whenever you want to. I just want to represent you in your case.
Right. And
suddenly, a school building with lousy infrastructure collapses, kills a dozen children. Huge tragedy. And people are drawn again to Willie Stark, who A, takes up the case, and B, had championed the idea that there needed to be these kind of reforms and infrastructure changes and things years earlier. And he has a second political wind all of a sudden as a populist candidate. And he is initially against the idea of running for governor, but eventually he is roped into it, in part by the political machine itself, who need what they think of as a stooge or a fool that they can use to scoop up some votes and then do their will.
A proxy, like a Hudsucker proxy.
Exactly. So these folks try to manipulate Willie, convince him to run for governor, and he starts out his campaign an extremely uninspiring candidate in spite of his recent swell of popularity. His speeches all revolve around tax reform and in detail policy that still no one gives a fuck about when you talk about it in a speech. It's not what anybody wants to hear. They want to hear big, bold proclamations, not the nitty-gritty of how shit gets done.
It reminds me a little bit of like what's his face used to always say about Apple. Like when people broke down Steve Jobs' speeches, he always, when giving an example, wouldn't give numbers. He would give how you can use it, because then it makes it apply to a person's life rather than be such an abstract concept. And it's like watching, like a teacher give announcements or something in these scenes, because it's so dull how he's trying to explain it. It's just awful.
Yeah, he always starts his speech with, what this state needs is tax reform. And they have various shots of people wandering away from his speeches as he talks about this, in detail tax code shit. So he begins to realize his campaign is doomed. And at the behest of one of his campaign aides, this is, what was her name?
Cass.
Cass.
I think so. I'll look that up to confirm.
Cass, he gets blind drunk one night to mark the end of his prospects as governor, theoretically. And the next day shows up to his campaign speech still drunk. And rather than recite the preordained speech he had, he gives this firebrand speech about how all the people in this state are hicks, and he himself is a hick that came from nothing, and the machine doesn't give one shit about you. They don't say that, it's from 1949. But he does.
They lied to me and they lie to you.
He knows what the struggles of hicks are. He knows crops failing. He knows roads that can't take your crops to market, sick kids, lack of education. He knows all of that. And the machine doesn't want to give it to you. The machine doesn't know it. They just care about their power. And that's his new campaign. Like, his campaign changes overnight, and he becomes this firebrand, populist, will of the people kind of character. And at this point, Burden, who's been covering his political campaign, is told by his editor-in-chief to drop him. The machine doesn't want us to cover Stark anymore. They want us to consolidate behind the opponent, who's a little bit more of a mainstream, gonna keep the wheels turning kind of candidate. And so Burden quits the paper, decides they're shills, and
fake news.
It's funny because in this part of the film, you don't know where it's going, and it almost feels a little bit like Mr. Smith Goes to Washington, like the little guy is going to be giving it to the big guy.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's really good. It's fun.
Yeah, and for clarification, the campaign manager's name is Sadie. She won an Oscar.
That's right.
Mercedes McCambridge won an Oscar for it.
So there's the three most prominent female characters are Sadie, the campaign manager, Lucy, which is Willie's wife, and Anne, which is Jack Burden's sort of crush/girlfriend.
Early childhood friend. They've known each other since they were kids.
Yeah, exactly. And ultimately, Willie loses his campaign, but he's not sad at all. Though he is a little changed by the experience. They show him going into a bar and ordering several drinks. At this point, Sugar, the stutterer, has sort of gotten over his stutter and become his one of his right-hand
body
men.
Man. Yeah.
Who kind of idolizes Stark.
Yeah.
It's probably one of the few people that actually stood up for him at any point. So yeah, he's sticking behind him.
Yeah. And Stark says, I'm not worried about this loss because I learned how to win. Jack jumps from job to job for 4 years, and Stark starts another campaign for governor, and this time he takes it. He wins the governorship and promises, a new era for unnamed state. And he gets Jack to jump onto to join his team. And to his credit, it seems like he does a lot. He builds museums.
Certainly builds a lot. Yeah.
Yeah. He builds museums, schools, roads. They're building a hospital. Football stadiums.
It's interesting that the entire surge of his political career and all these things are essentially handled the same way in which an 80s action film handles getting ready to fight the big battle, where it's it's just an action montage of road built, child happy, hospital going in, all these things keep happening around him, and you're I don't know how any of that occurred, but a lot of it's happening very quickly on screen. So sure, okay.
It kind of reminds me of the movie Spotlight, where the climax of the film is literally going through a spreadsheet. And highlighting things. That's the highlight. That's literally the climax of the film. That's the rising action.
Uh-huh.
Well, as Willie's ability to become an extremely efficient political figure increase, his personal relationships begin to sort of deteriorate and become increasingly manipulative. He begins to frequently cheat on his wife, Lucy. Sadie believes that eventually he will, when it is politically convenient, leave Lucy and marry her because she's kind of, not unlike Sugar and Jack at certain points in the narrative, become obsessed with him. They've put him on a pedestal and made him sort of a messiah or somebody who's going to save not just the state, but maybe America.
Well, they've kind of done what everybody in the populace did. They projected their hopes and dreams on this person
Exactly.
and just imagine that there's no way he could possibly break our hearts. And then we find out,
Yes.
as you're about to get into
His followers are extremely fervent. They love the hell out of him. Yeah, they think he took down the machine. And he does a lot of wheeling and dealing. He's cutting deals in back rooms with unscrupulous people. He even goes to Jack's family and his childhood friends, most notably Anne's family, the Stantons, which the most prominent of which are Anne's father, Judge Stanton, and Anne's brother, Adam Stanton, who is a prominent doctor, and promises them new hospitals, all kinds of reforms if they just lend him support and a little money, which they initially do. And he goes on to go through his term, but he is ultimately betrayed by a number of political scandals. Yeah,
it's pretty hilarious because of the way all this works out. It feels like a Trump origin story. I know you're still going through it, but it just every time it feels so strange watching this because you start rooting for him and then the other shoe drops and you realize what you've found yourself in. Yeah,
It is eerily prescient.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah. He finds people rooting around in public funds and makes them give him resignation letters that he can sign whenever he wants to hold over their heads. So they'll, follow in exactly as he wants them to do. His son begins to turn to drinking because his relationship with his father has fallen apart. And there's a bit of a Chappaquiddick situation where the son is in a car crash with a young woman who nearly dies. I don't believe she does die, but I think she almost dies.
I think she's paralyzed forever, or unconscious,
something like that. Yeah,
well,
coma, something.
the son's paralyzed. I think that she.
That's later.
That's later. Yeah, that's later.
Yeah. Oh, sorry. Yeah.
And the father accuses the son of drinking and driving, which, Willie covers up, but the son admits to when the guy comes to see him, and that guy disappears a little while later.
He dies. He's totally murdered, is what happens.
Right.
Yeah.
Much later, they find his body beaten to death.
When you said disappeared in the context of it being about a movie, we could think that he just stopped being written about. But he's dead.
Phantasm. This could be Phantasm,
Later in the movie, they find his body and he's been beaten to death. Judge Stanton, seeing that Willie's become a manipulator, a wheeler and dealer, someone who does not always follow the law, decides to resign, which is another political blow to Willie Stanton that he does not take lightly. His response is to try and pull Judge Stanton's son into directing the hospital he's making to get the Stanton name back on his side because they're such powerful figures in unnamed state. But Adam Stanton refuses. His sister is apoplectic at this, beginning to belie the fact that she has stronger feelings for Willie Stark than previously admitted. And Jack is sent to try and track down any dirt on Judge Stanton so that he can bring him down to his level and get rid of this albatross. But, as it were, just as his re-election campaign is ramping up, his son is forced to play football, frankly, by Willie, who wants to control every aspect of his personal life. Lucy obviously knows he's been having affairs and has grown distant from him, but has to play at being, a doting wife.
A governor's wife.
Yeah, exactly. And one day, when Willie forces his son Tommy to play on a day when he did not want to play football, he is tackled especially hard and paralyzed for life. So his family life is essentially destroyed at this point. And at about the same time, They discover the body of that man I mentioned earlier who had been beaten to death, and Willie is brought up on impeachment charges. So he's in the fight of his life over this impeachment thing. He pulls out all the stops. He does every trick he knows. He gets all of his supporters. Jack is becoming disillusioned, starting to understand what a scummy politician Willie Stark is. And Anne is becoming even more enamored with him. He shares with Anne the fact that he did find some dirt on her father at a certain point. And it is also revealed that Judge Stanton is the main force trying to get Willie impeached. He's the one corralling votes to make sure that Willie gets kicked out of office. So Willie eventually goes to Judge Stanton to confront him, to try and get the impeachment charges completely dropped, to make him tell the senators to vote to let him stay in office, and reveals that even though Jack never gave it to him, somehow he got a hold of this blackmail on Judge Stanton. Pretty quickly, it's revealed that Anne clearly gave it to him after Jack shared it with her.
And this is also a reveal at the same time, because an underlying subplot is that the doctor that has been helping them is also the brother of Anne.
It's Anne's
brother. Jack, Adam, and Anne were all childhood friends. They've known each other forever.
And Adam and Anne are brother and sister. Anne turned on her own father, basically, and gave away this blackmail. She is implied heavily to have been sleeping with Willie Stark at this point.
And in love with.
Yeah. Much like Sadie. Sadie has also become disillusioned with him at this point and realized that he is going to jump from woman to woman, that he'll do whatever Willie Stark wants to do, and that's really all he cares about. So Judge Stanton, faced with this old scandal from 25 years prior, kills himself. And as a result, the next day, under huge political pressure, with Willie's fans screaming outside the state capitol, the impeachment fails, and Willie is allowed to stay in power. Jack has left his campaign. Anne has been told that Willie's going to break it off with her. He's done with her, basically. She has nothing left. She's trying to apologize to her brother for basically her role in their own father's death. And so Jack and Anne search to find what happened to Adam, her brother. Turns out he is at the state capitol himself with a gun, where he shoots Willie Stark several times and is himself killed by bodyguards. And Jack says to Anne that their work's not done. The people in the crowd still see Willie Stark as a hero, and they need to reveal the true Willie Stark. And the film ends with Willie dying on the steps of the state capitol, muttering to himself. And that is the story of all the King's Men.
Very well summarized. Very well summarized.
Very well summarized. And for anyone who's watching in the last 10 seconds of that, apologies for the pop-up that said the 40-minute Zoom call was being made free for us.
We're real professionals, folks.
Yeah, it's okay. But yeah, the ending was kind of strange to me, because it's like a very old-timey ending where it doesn't take a lot of time on the denouement. It gets you there and it just ends. Yep. And you're just like, all right, it's time to get out of the theater. That's it.
Yep. It, especially considering how nihilistic the whole thing has been up to that point, and then with such a kind of violent and indeed absolute end of the whole story, it does feel like, you're done with me, like, okay, I'll be on my way then. I Zach, you wanted to talk about the differences between the novel and the movie. I know that they were kind of numerous in the fact that the judge wasn't necessarily the father of Adam and Anne.
The judge was a childhood friend / mentor to Jack, but Anne and Adam's father in the novel is actually the governor prior to Willie Stark.
Okay. That makes sense. That makes sense. And it apparently, like, this movie was directed by Robert Rossen. This is back in the day when a director, producer really wanted to do
sorry,
something.
there's one other thing.
Sure.
The other twist that is not in the movie is that the judge was not just a mentor.
Oh,
It
right.
is revealed late in the narrative that the judge was Jack's father.
Yeah. That's true. I read the same thing.
There's one other thing in it. The main character of Willie, his name was Talos, I believe, in the novel. That was one of the things that came up. So it was like, it was Talos based off Talos, who I think was in a very old story about
Fairy Queen, I think.
Fairy Princess. Yeah, the Fairy Queen. He was a bad guy in that. So yeah, it was supposed to be based off that name-wise.
It seems like what happened is, in the published version, he is called Willie Stark, but in the original manuscript, he was called Willie Talos, after a character from the epic poem The Fairy Queen. But in the actual printed original version, he was Willie Stark.
Yeah, they did
a
like
2002 restored version.
There you go.
Willie Talos is the name of the character.
Yep.
Yeah, and it was originally like a stage play, and you could sort of get that vibe, even in this movie, that you could see this being on stage. So yeah, I think that, but it's back in the day where you had a director-producer who, when they liked a source material, they could just go and get it. You know, they didn't necessarily need studio backing, and so, I mean, basically Robert Rossen's the one who approached Warren for the rights to this film and had it. And he was working on it forever, apparently. So, I mean, this is all kind of Rosen's kind of baby here. And Harry
people can
Cohen,
still do that.
Oh,
People
yeah,
can still do that now. It's just in the independent circuit. Like, if anything is like a bestseller, like this, I believe it was
not
a Pulitzer
likely
Prize
winner for sure.
Yeah, like an individual director is unlikely to be able to pull that. But yeah, at the time, it was very different rules, very different laws. So yeah, they could do that.
I mean, the notion of like kind of an auteur was not that hard to come by, and Rosen's kind of that with this film specifically, and he was in his later films as well. I mean, he's the kind of director that when he bites off more than he can chew, it gets to be really boring. Like his Richard Burton film Alexander the Great. I remember seeing it when I was very little, and I remember being kind of one of those movies that Hollywood made in the 50s all the time. But he directed my favorite movie of all time, The Hustler. And there's a lot of similarities in The Hustler and in this. Because I watched this a long time ago, because I remember they were making that fucking remake. And so I decided,
the remake, yeah.
They remade it in like 2006, I think. Sean Penn played Stark, and yeah, anyway.
It's a pretty stacked cast, actually.
It is.
In the 2006, so they had Sean Penn as Stark, Jude Law as Jack Burton, Kate Winslet as Anne, Anthony Hopkins as the judge, James Gandolfini as Tiny. I'm not sure which character Tiny is.
Tiny Duffy. He's the power broker that he's kind of running against at the beginning.
Oh, at the beginning.
Why, even in the summary, as soon as Willie Stark becomes governor, Tiny Duffy has a job. So he's bringing in the old political machine with him. So that's what's the kind of farce of this whole populism thing.
But they also have Mark Ruffalo as Adam Stanton also.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like a great cast, but it was a massive failure, right?
Yeah, it was a huge flop.
bomb.
Very, very bad reviews.
Yeah.
I don't even remember this movie coming out.
I saw it in theater because I was kind of prepped for it, and I thought it was, and when I found out it was a Rosen film, I thought, well, that's got to be bold to try to do that, and it wasn't that great. They lean heavily into the long. I mean, they make it very clear that it's in Louisiana, whereas All the King's Men in 1949 was filmed in like California, Stockton, it looks just like the Badlands of, Colorado, of California, and
a lot of the extras are supposed to just be people from Stockton, but
and apparently it was uncommon to film in that location, so good on them that they
it's probably still uncommon to film in that location. I think it's just a large industrial area now.
Yeah, apparently that courthouse that the movie's based on is no longer there, so
it is very interesting. The guy who wrote and directed the 2006 version also wrote Schindler's List, Gangs of New York, The Irishman. He's quite an accomplished screenwriter.
Right. It just goes to show. I mean, look at the cast and crew of Zardoz, and you will see a very, very competent group of people who know how to make movies, and yet somehow, I mean, like if you just take this script and remake it, how can you go wrong? But sometimes it just doesn't work like that. It takes the magic of kind of Broderick Crawford playing Willie Stark.
Right.
And not just that, a pretty impressive supporting cast around him.
With the infrastructure of films and how things get picked and decided, it's almost impossible for anything to come out ever. So when something good comes out, it's amazing. When something bad comes out, it's like, oh, I could see that coming.
Yeah.
So
right.
yeah,
right.
Yeah, but in this one, it's exciting. Also, just since we're getting into it with the script, did you guys read the thing about John Wayne?
I did hear that story.
I didn't.
I did hear that story.
Okay. When they first wrote this, they were trying to get a star attached, so they were hustling it around town, showing it to different people, and Rossen sent it to John Wayne's agent, and John Wayne's agent sent it over, and then when he read it, the level of intensity John Wayne had responding to the politics
by it,
yeah, he was like, "How dare you besmirch the political machine, or how our great country and laws happen?" I mean, it was 100% John Wayne being a Republican dick. You could see his like fuck communists, like lighter business, like way earlier in his life. That's a Punisher or Preacher reference. I think
that is a Preacher reference.
Yeah,
yep, I remember that because he's
But yeah, he came on it really intense and basically told them you should change all these things and not send it to anyone. And of course, they just kept going until they found someone else who would do it. It's just funny because of how leftist this is and how intensely right-wing we would eventually find out John Wayne was.
Even more ironic is that both Broderick Crawford, who played Willie Stark, was up for an Oscar for Best Actor against John Wayne for The Sands of Iwo Jima. And fucking Crawford won, so and well deserved too. I thought Broderick Crawford really did it. He's, for being such a large kind of force of nature that you've got to play for Willie Stark, he's a good type for that, and he's very kind of nimble. Like he's not just kind of lunking around. He's very graceful in his movements.
Yeah. It's very easy to understand how he could do a flip too. Like there are a couple actors who are very good at that. You mentioned James Gandolfini, and there's other character actors, but he's so believable as like a nice guy, and you like him, that when he turns, you totally believe that too. It's a very interesting role to watch happen.
Yeah, and in this, and I don't know. I don't really know if I would call this a leftist. It's perspective.
Yeah, I don't know if I would either. I think there's yeah.
Well, I would say that some of the political stuff that they talk about that is popular is leftist. However, I guess it is just generally like things that are open to everyone, where it's like you'd want a hospital, and it's just a general sense of you'd need a hospital. So yeah, I mean,
like Mussolini built shit too. Like he put his name on everything as well. Like it. And it's even, I mean, the film doesn't try to hide that fact. I mean, like the Stark rallies are very, very, very callbacks to Triumph of the Will. And I even caught that when the first time I watched this, which must have been back in 2006. And I even, the funny part is I thought, well, that can't happen here. A patron loving demagogue. A womanizing demagogue. Come on now, not in this country. We're way too.
I feel. So there's a couple things that made me feel very mixed upon watching this movie. For one, yes, like it's obviously like broadly the story of this guy who was a good guy who fought against the system and ultimately got dragged down in the muck and became a new form of the system himself. It's a more hyper. It reminded me like a hyper, sort of exaggerated version of like the Carcetti storyline from The Wire almost.
Okay, sure.
But also, yeah, I do think from the perspective of an average person and not somebody in the personal life of Willie Stark, it seems like this guy did a great deal of good for people, like legitimately. And he did say like he was touting extremely socialist ideas. Like he had signs that said, medicine for all men, not something like as a right, not as a privilege or something. Mm-hmm. Like, and it seemed Huey Long was the same way. He had a lot of redistribute the wealth, and he may have been personally an unpleasant person, but from the perspective of the people, he wasn't like Donald Trump in that regard, where Trump is not actually giving the people who follow him very much, except for they're punishing the people he wants to punish. He seems to be giving them things that are improving their lives. Their kids have schools. They have hospitals. They have roads. Like,
Right.
he is doing things.
Yeah,
That's true.
But he also has kind of the personality of he's an asshole, but he's their asshole to a degree. Like that's one of the
yes.
things I've noticed later.
Yeah. And also, like Donald Trump, he refused to make a call on the KKK. So,
Huey Long.
yeah, Huey Long, like Donald Trump, doesn't make
Yeah.
a call on the KKK. Anyway,
Yeah.
There's no race stuff in this movie. They kind of... I don't think there's even a black person on screen.
I mean, that's common for the era, but I also think it was to try to remove it from any... They wanted to keep the state as kind of neutral as possible. It could be, fucking Nebraska for all anybody matters. I think that they were trying to not make it as prominent. Well, I don't know. Probably just because fucking cheaper. And again, in that era, I'm not surprised. But to Robert Rosen's credit, he made a lot of films with he made movies with Barry Belafonte, had Dorothy Dandridge in his movies. I mean, he to his credit, he did what he could at the time.
Didn't he also name names?
He did, unfortunately. Yep, he sure did. Yeah, well, because he was
I didn't want to give him a complete pass because he did. He did the initial thing where he's like, "I'm not saying anything. I'm pleading the fifth," and then he came back 2 years later and named names.
Yeah, he sure did. And it almost, he didn't do much outside of. I think he only directed like 10 films. But even in this film, I think that, again, the trying to mimic of the Triumph of the Will, I think that's probably what got the House of Un-American Activities on his, because they really didn't like when you compared any politician to a fascist. They really didn't like that. They liked it if you compared him to a communist. They're fine with that. But they really didn't like it if you brought up too much of how easy it would be for American fascism to take hold in this country. And yeah, that's why I think that it's important to understand political figures like Huey Long, that and that I think this film is trying to underline, and I think probably in the novel as well, that, power corrupts. That's what power does. Like it will bring out the worst in you. But also that the idea of stirring up popular whim means that you have to be responsible for it as well. And when you are irresponsible with it, the erosion of either your detractors or your supporters almost becomes permanent. That erosion of trust between any sort of system of government. When you're the messianic figure who's going to come in and save the day, and then just become, meet the new boss, same as the old boss. That's the perils of populism. And again, in the 1930s, when Huey Long was king, that was very prominent throughout the globe. They were looking for strong, boisterous demagogues like this. It was very popular. You could make an argument that FDR was. I wouldn't, but you could make that argument. And again, Huey Long was fine with FDR for a while. And then as soon as you get a little bit of power and somebody's got more power than you, your instinct is to, well, I've got to get that power. And Huey Long, it's again, he's a very controversial figure, and again, trying to pin him down as some sort of sinner or saint is a fool's errand. And much less so with Willie Stark. Willie Stark's very cut and dry. That he had some good ideas, but then he found out what works. Then he found out what wins, and that is to apply your rage at a political disenfranchisement into mobilization. And that is a double-edged sword. And
I got a couple things. One, I would say that the rallies reminded me in part, obviously the Triumph of the Will thing, but the thing that actually I thought of first was Charlottesville, given the time that we're living in.
The tiki torches.
There was a lot of tiki torches in those scenes.
Right. And that was just budget constraints.
The problem I have with that description of Willie Stark is, so when you use political disenfranchisement as a tool, that is something that a lot of people do. For one, Bernie Sanders does it.
For sure.
Like, that is something that Donald Trump also does.
For sure.
And they do it in different ways. Willie Stark is not aiming it at a group of people. He's not saying the immigrants or the blacks are coming.
Very true. Very true.
He makes fucking hospitals and museums and schools. So I don't know that Willie Stark is a cut and dry sinner. Now, obviously, he's horrible in his personal politics and his personal relationships. He has people killed. But I don't know that there's a strong argument that he does not clearly help the average people of this state. Like, I think he very obviously does.
He does, but much like Huey Long, he's also very much about taking from the rich and giving to the poor. So it is something where he did have a bad guy that he propped up as a straw man, and it was like the rich in this case.
Yeah.
So he was like, you should have free healthcare and things like that, which I agree with.
Right, and then the phony, the political machine that would just keep their boot on your neck. Oh, by the way, I've hired them in my administration. Just don't ignore Tiny Duffy. Like that's the sort of. What I'm saying is that there's inherent fraudulism in just blind populism. When you just do things just to satiate your constituents, which is what you should be doing, but where you're only doing that.
Well,
just for the purpose of maintaining your own power.
He's only speaking to the id. He's not speaking to any other level.
He's not doing it
of
because he cares. He's doing it because he wants to stay in power, because they'll vote for him if he builds a fucking hospital.
Frame this, because I think that, and the author has said this is not supposed to be a book about politics, and maybe it's not. And I think that the thing is, the actual political effect in the macro of Willie Stark as a governor is vaguely alluded to. We know he builds a lot of shit and that he remains pretty popular. His personal politics, his personal relations are the bulk of this film. It's a Shakespearean tragedy. It is not really a political commentary as much, because
I completely agree.
What he does for this state is unclear but seems good.
I will concede that. Again, but I think what the story is really about is it goes into politics in so much that politics is power. That's about as much as it goes into.
I actually have a question I want to pose to you guys about this. Because the character, I think, as we've talked about, this is pretty straightforward as far as stories of, absolute power corrupting absolutely. However, he turns into something way more than just a powerful man. Like, when he starts out, it seems like he's someone who has a lot of empathy, and by the end of the film, he's become a toxic narcissist who's essentially using good people in his life as a smokescreen for the bad things he's doing. Like, he's manipulating Anne into going to talk to people because he knows that she has a good, solid friendship with people. So it's one of those things that, like, I'm going to just say a name because fuck him. Max Landis really likes to have... That was how he kind of would pull people in. I'm only saying him because I've had a number of bad interactions with him, and I don't mind blowing his name up. You can say
everybody knows that Max Landis is a piece of shit. There was a huge article. It's like, he's done.
Yeah, that's it. Okay, so the thing is that I noticed even in the grander sense of people that I knew who happened to know him, he had an extended group of people who were nice people who he would sometimes have argue for his favor in things. So when I was saying he wasn't a good guy, I had a mutual friend that had known him for a long time, and that mutual friend argued with me, no, he's a great guy. In the same way, I saw stuff like that happening in this movie, and it just made me wonder, did you guys buy that as something that someone could turn into that? Or do you think that it's something that would be an innate quality of someone and not something they could turn into?
It depends, because, I mean, the way I understand the way the novel's written is there is this sense of, like, nihilism that everything just sort of doesn't matter. So what do morals and ethics really matter anyway? And I think that the whole conflict of ambition versus ethics always plays into that in some respect, I would think.
Yeah, I think
so. I don't know if it's innate in human nature, but I think it's innate in power.
Yeah, and it's strange because Willie also starts out as a person who is not directly interested in power itself. Like, he is a person who genuinely views power as a means to do something in the early scenes. Like, he runs for treasurer exclusively because he wants to do something. It's not because he wants the power of being treasurer.
Right.
And there is, I suppose that there could be a position where if you believe your having power is inherently a good, then doing whatever is necessary to maintain that power must also inherently be a good. And I think a person could trick themselves into believing that is true. So I suppose that is probably, and I think probably Willie never thought of himself as the bad guy. Like, he says that good comes from evil a lot. Mm-hmm. And I think on some level he always did. Again, this is a position where I think he is unlike Trump, a person who believed he was doing good for the people, for the quote unquote hicks of the country. I don't think Donald Trump gives two fucks about the hicks of the country, except that they vote for him.
Yeah,
but
I completely agree. But like Trump, let me think about how I want to phrase this. Like Trump, Stark also confuses the people's will with his maintaining of power. That's what it morphs into. And I think that's the mutation that you see, and you see everything falls apart. I mean, even people under his thumb start to become these kind of ghosts that just sort of float throughout the city. And that's sort of what kind of struck my button this time around.
There's definitely an element of like, there's a couple interactions with police where Tommy almost kills that girl and they find him unconscious and the police are like, oh, that's the governor's boy. And it's clear that they're not going to charge him. And there's one point where Jack and Anne, a policeman comes up to them and they're like, it's all right, we work for Willie Stark. And the cop just, like, it's clear there's a level of corruption and allowance. Also, you know what? I'm going to give a quick point to Russell because I enjoyed that debate about the personal impact of Willie Stark versus his impact on a state or larger macro level. I thought that was an interesting conversation. I'm glad I had it.
Okay, yeah. Well, thank you. I'll take it. Bonus point. There you go. All right, cool. No, and that's what it's what I love about Robert Rossen does. He did this a lot in The Hustler. His view of romance is sort of always in this collapsing sort of world that it's in. You know, like one of the most telling shots is Jack and Anne wandering down the docks or whatever. I think the docks or the train yards or something. And it's just this kind of beautiful, lonely shot of these people. And he's very good at highlighting the loneliness of romance and what a scorned love can do for people or not do for people. Like he's very good at it. He does it all the time in The Hustler. But I mean, one of the things that Rossen apparently did is, and one of the things he constantly does is he shoots a lot. He shoots a whole lot. The first cut of this film was apparently a mammoth 250 minutes. It's a very famous story that Harry Cohen of Columbia Pictures hired Robert Parrish to sort of trim it down, and they still weren't happy with it. And the story goes is that Rossen told him to just get to the center of every scene and cut everything before and after. And the movie, once you know that, kind of looks like that. That it's very just, okay, now we're doing this scene. Crossfade into this thing. Crossfade.
It kind of feels better, though, because I could really do without the long-winded opening and closing of scenes. Like, if a lot of films during this time period have the real annoying habit of having to show people open and close doors, go into an office building, walk upstairs, and open and close doors. It was never just people in an office having a conversation. It was always somebody opening a damn door to go into an office and have a conversation. It is funny, though, that they did that cutting in the middle thing. It almost reminded me of, like, there's a story about James Cameron where he did the same thing on T2 because it came in too long. But in that case, rather than doing what makes sense, he decided to cut out each 24th frame.
Right, yeah. He cut out like...
So, yeah, it's because he thought it would speed the film up. And, you know, he just made his editor... Genius. Yeah, made the editor sit there and do it. And it was just cut and copy and pasting and choppy all over the place. But yeah, in this case, it was great.
At least with Rossen, like, it was only his third movie, so like I'll chalk it up to like he's kind of freewheeling this. He's very close to the subject matter. You could tell he was very passionate about it, but I also think that like he kind of bit off more than he could chew, even just shooting a pretty simple story like this one. And yeah, he's kind of famous for trimming the fat. In fact, it's part of the reason why Paul Newman never spoke to him again. It kind of blames him for losing the Oscar in 1961 for The Hustler, because there's this apparently huge monologue that Paul Newman gives, and it hit the cutting room floor, and D.D. Allen apparently and Robert Rosen got into it about keeping that scene, and Newman apparently always blamed Rosen for that's what cost him the Oscar, not just that, West Side Story swept everything. But yeah, I always find it funny when they trim the fat like that, and it works, because I mean, they like go back to Phantasm, right, where they trim the fat of that one, and you're like, well, you trim the fat, sure, but you lost the path. You lost the path of us getting there.
The story no longer makes sense,
right? Yeah.
But then, like with The Wicker Man, they cut out tons, and you're like, oh, but the story still generally makes sense, and you like it better after it's been cut. Though I'm going through the process of
and it's different for different movies. Like The Wicker Man, when you're putting together a movie like The Wicker Man, the plot is roundly pretty simple in The Wicker Man, and it's also meant to be dreamlike and alienating in a way that a movie like All the King's Men simply is not.
That's valid.
Yeah, the editing mindset you would take to those two films would be different, I think.
Sure. Yeah, and it worked. Look, it worked because it won Best Picture. All the King's Men beat out Sansa v. Wajima or a bunch of other shit. But it's also the year that Baby It's Cold Outside won Best Song. So could take that for what it's worth. I thought about this winning, and this is one of those movies where you watch and then you learn that it won Best Picture, and you're like, I could see that. I could see that.
I'll say this for Baby It's Cold Outside. I'm willing to bet that the songs surrounding it on either side for best song winners I've never heard in my life.
Well, if you go through the Best Picture nominees of what All the King's Men beat, you would go through a similar thought process. They're not much that
it was a pretty light year, right?
Yeah. I mean, Mankiewicz had a movie. Carol Reed. It was the year Bicycle Thieves came out. I guess. Anyway.
That's a good movie. But I am not surprised it didn't win foreign films in 1940, especially an Italian foreign film in 1949.
Right.
Probably not going to win.
Right. Post-fascist Italy. And here we are in 2008, 2020, and Parasite is best winner. It was the only good thing to happen this year. But yeah, I think that, what I like about this kind of, I have affection for these kind of 1940s Hollywood black and white films. I don't know why. Maybe it just reminds me of like home and A Rainy Day Out and Turner Classic Movies is on. That's just how I would, that was my jam when I was a kid. So I guess that's why it kind of lingers pretty softly for me, I suppose.
Okay, just to verify my own question. The year after, the best song was Mona Lisa from Captain Carey USA. No idea.
Okay. I'll take their word for it.
By Ray Evans and John Livingston. The year before, from The Paleface, was Buttons and Bows by Ray Evans and John Livingston. And the year before, 1947's best song, Zippity Doo Dah.
Ah, yes.
From Song of the South.
Yes, indeed. Yeah.
What a wonderful time period.
Yes, indeed.
Baby, It's Cold Outside, all things considered. Could have been a lot
worse. Oh, God. Oh, my God.
But did you guys find this like more a political thriller?
Again, I would say that this is yes, it is. Like, it's about politics as much as the author didn't want it to. Like, it's about the way the public perceives a person, even if that's not the main thrust of the story in terms of, like, the larger public. It's more personal in terms of how we're actually introduced to him and seeing the various visions of this larger-than-life figure we get. But it is more like a tragedy. It is a personal tragedy, a Shakespearean tragedy, more than a political thriller to me.
It feels a little bit more like it'd be closer to like a horror film. It's similar to a tragedy, just because it's the concept that like you don't see him turning into a better person, then he dies at the end. It's very nihilistic. Like usually in thrillers, there's the general suggestion that they get the bad guy and then someone wins, but there is no win here. It's just the guy dies.
This might as well be Macbeth, right? I mean, it's a guy who's a relatively decent guy at the beginning, seeks power and does increasingly terrible things to gain and keep it, and ends up dead.
Yeah, I guess there's no Lady Macbeth, so to speak.
No, there isn't. He's kind of his own worst impulse, but...
My litmus test was there was a political assassination, therefore political thriller.
I'm not going to disqualify it.
Okay.
Yeah, no, it was fun. I had a great time with this. Yeah.
It is a fun movie. I guess that could kind of transition me to my final thoughts, I guess, on it, unless you guys got more shit to talk about.
I just had one thing I wanted to ask you guys. Do you guys feel the overwhelming urge when giant blocks of text appear on screen in old films to pause and read the article?
No, but I know you do.
I mean, it's one of those things, like, because I know that they would have initially not let you do that because it was, a film, you're sitting in the theater, so it's all there. You couldn't. But now you can stop it and read it. And I could tell that with the article they showed that the newspaper man wrote, someone went through and did a lot of work making it a legitimate article. They went into detail on it. They made it read like an actual article. And I was always impressed, or I was impressed in this case, because usually in these you see like, dear so-and-so, yabba yabba yabba, ellipsis, ellipsis, ellipsis. And then it doesn't really show you the entire breadth of what they're doing. But in this case, they sat down, did the entire article. So I was just wondering if you guys get driven nuts by that in old movies or any movies where someone shows a document and I'm just like, all right, let me pause the movie. No?
I'm going to say rarely, Chris. I'm going to say
I've
very,
done
very
it a
rarely.
few times, but I usually don't.
I know when I do it whenever there's something that shows up in anything you're in that you get to decide on, because then I know that you're going to put something in there. Did I ever tell my little brother?
I can't wait until the movie trap has a reason to throw like a spinning newspaper at the screen. Russell Carlsen attacked by wild ferrets. Here's the story.
I'll tell you this story real quick because it reminds me. My little brother will never forgive me because I recommended No Country for Old Men to him back in the day, and he thought that he had to pay attention to every fucking frame of that film. He literally thought that the serial numbers on the money that Josh Brolin finds are somehow significant to the story. And I don't know where he got that idea that that's how you're supposed to watch that fucking movie, because I would have a boring time watching that movie if I was going through all that as well. Anyway, it's just
what did he think he was going to get out of that?
I have no idea. That's and wouldn't you know it?
Like
he walked away
ARG?
disappointed. I don't know. Wouldn't you know it? He walked away disappointed because there was nothing there to dig into. Anyway, my little brother and I get in constant arguments. We're still not over Mad Max Fury Road. But yeah, I guess okay. I'll move on to my final thoughts. Unless anybody else has got anything, it's a fucking good movie. It's eerily prescient, as I said earlier, in today's parlance, considering that populist demagoguery is back and in full effect, and showing political fruit. Not on the side that I would root for, but that's the sort of the scary part about it. I thought Broderick Crawford, who apparently was drunk the whole time, according to Don Siegel, which, didn't have to act that hard to play Willie Stark. He's undoubtedly the engine that drives this film, but I would argue that the supporting cast around him helps carry that movie as well, especially Sadie and Jack, because that by the end of it, they're just ground down into, like I said, like kind of these husks of just instruments. You're just pieces on a board for Willie to sort of whatever he could do to save his own ass. And it says a lot about power and ethics and alcoholism, I guess, and in some respects politics. I mean, I'm sort of with you, Zach, that I think that the political nature of what Willie accomplishes is merely just to underline the fact that he has very popular support because he's doing things for his constituents, which on its face would be admirable.
Yeah. So I guess I'll go next. Yeah, I think there are, the demagoguery or cult of personality stuff is probably the most politically relevant stuff in this movie. The scene where he switches his speech from like the mundane, this is what we need to do, these are my policies, to the big, like, we're all hicks and I'm a hick like you and we're going to kick the ass of these guys. Like I'll break them down myself with my bare hands if I have to, kind of stuff. And that is something that is popular and works. And I think I've seen people argue that this is something that only exists in certain realms of the political spectrum, right? Like it only exists on the right, it only exists in like the center left, or it only exists on the far left or one of those is exempt. I think that's bullshit. Every single area of the political spectrum has these cults of personalities, and they fall in love with people who have speeches that are more fire than substance a lot of time. And that's not always bad. I think people need to be more aware of it. I think people pretend it doesn't apply to them. And I think it's one of the most important things that this film highlights, and is a huge factor in the popularity of the current president, perhaps the single most driving factor. So on that level, yeah, I think there is something to learn from this film. And I think that it is a good personal, smaller scale tragedy if you just look at the personal, interpersonal life of Willie Stark and forget about the grand platform he obtains over the course of this film. I think it's a well done movie. It won Best Picture. It's, you watch one of these old movies from the 40s, and if they're good, they're just good. Yep. And this is just good.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, that kind of echoes my thoughts too. I like the film really well. I did think it feels extremely strange to be seeing a origin story for, I said this to you guys before the show, an origin story for Trump. It's very weird. At least I think that was before the show. Maybe that was during the show. But the thing is that...
Trump didn't have to learn the sociopathy.
No, God. Yeah.
Kinda, if you believe his sister.
Oh, God. Yeah, I mean, by the time this comes out, we might not... Oh, God, I hope we don't have him as president anymore.
Well, he'll still be president, but it might be lame duck.
Yeah, I'm hoping he's a lame duck by then. So it was interesting. It was fun. It was... One of the things I thought was funny is he got so hungover he turned into Hitler. Like, I don't know. What's the worst hangover you guys have had?
All right, Borf, you got my point. There you go. You got my point. That was good.
For me, the worst hangover I ever had was just, I went to a zoo, and I was out in the heat, and there was a small child with us who kept screaming about the javelinas, because he was so excited to see the javelinas, and it was just like a pick in my skull the whole time. But I didn't turn into Hitler. Have you guys had any experience where you got, like, a really crazy hangover?
Honestly, the worst... There's a decent chance that the worst hangover I've ever had was spent with Russell and our other friends watching movies for an entire day and eating greasy food. I suspect if I ever had a terrible... There's been a few, like, 6, 7 a.m. nights where we woke up 4 hours later, and it was hard.
No, I only get into a dictatorial rage when I can't find my keys. That's when, or a printer doesn't work or anything. That's when they get the full force of the state.
I'm pretty sure I've heard you get very, very vindictive over hockey, though. I'm pretty sure that there's certain...
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. That's for sure. I mean,
okay, so that'd be your trigger.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. Yeah. It doesn't take much, Chris. A video game. I'm playing a Mario fucking game, and I don't know why I keep playing these games because I'm awful at them. Anyway.
Well, like I said, that's my thoughts, though. I thought it was a great movie. I don't have any real criticisms of it. I think it's a impression of the current time, and I'm probably going to suggest it to people in the future.
Okay.
Very good. Yeah.
All right, well, before we hand it off to Zach to let us know what we're watching next, let's just do a quick rundown of the points vis-a-vis bonus point situation. Chris Boroff just got a point from me for Hungover Hitler from Russell. And I got a point on the personal impact vis-a-vis political impact discussion. So, huzzah. So now, as of the count now, Chris will have 11 points to vote, Zach will have 10, and I will have 11.
All right. Okay, so now for my pick, there were a few, real political thriller classics that I regret to say I haven't seen, but I also feel like you guys ate my lunch on a couple of them. I had considered A Face in the Crowd, but All the King's Men. You want a movie about a demagogue rising written by somebody who named names? Well, you already did it. You can't do it twice. It'd be a waste of time. The Manchurian Candidate, never saw it, but Parallax View, it's like assassination, conspiracy shit.
Uh-huh. For sure.
So I'm going to preface my choice is down to 2, and I'm going to preface it by asking if either of you have not seen one of the 2. And I think Russell's seen them both.
Okay.
So, Chris, have you not seen either In the Loop or The Death of Stalin?
I have not seen The Death of Stalin.
I'm going to go with...
In the Loop. We did In the Loop for Film Concussion back in the day.
Great. Then let's do The Death of Stalin. I'm going to stretch the term political thriller a bit. I feel like the third person always has to stretch. It's becoming a bit of a theme that the person who picks third is like, I'm going to go for something a little out of the box.
Off the wall, right, yeah. Well, I guess Borif with a Halloween with Wicker Man was pretty on track for the 70s. Yeah.
That's the one exception. But everything else, Color Out of Space, was it really isolationist? Debatable.
Was it really fun? Debatable.
The Police Academy cops were bad cops.
Indeed.
So, we're gonna thrill. We're gonna have a political.
Death of Stalin. Okay, yeah, political comedy.
Available on Netflix, so easy to get. If you like to watch along at home.
Yep.
Hopefully, still available when this airs.
Awesome. I love this movie, so I've certainly got a lot to talk about. I'm excited.
Yeah, I'm excited to watch it since this has been on my to-watch list, and I have almost watched it a few times. I was on a plane one time, and then I think something distracted me, and another time there was a movie on the screen, and something distracted me. So it has been distracted from me twice, and I will now sit down and actually watch it for you guys.
Great. Yep.
Yeah.
Awesome. Right. So tune in next time for Zach's pick for The Death of Stalin in the political thriller round. Yeah, well, that was fun, and I'm excited to see Death of Stalin again.
All right. Well, this is Chris signing off. Take care of yourselves.
This is Russell signing off. Thanks for listening.
And this, in the correct order, is Zach signing off. We did it. You know what?
You're the best around.
A point for Chris for starting off the order correctly.
And a late point for Zach for
guys,
giving me the
over.
chance.
There's no more points given out. No. Zach already gave his point. No.
I'm the only one with 10 here. Come on.
You're not getting a point.
Oh, come on, fellas. Let's relax. It's a hot day.
I'll have some orange pop if you don't mind.
Orange pop? All right, sugar boy, bring him some orange pop.
Yeah, the pop's sold out.
Did you hear that, boys? The pop is sold out.
Now, wait till your card.
He stutters, Mr. Duffy. But you don't say anything. Let's go, mister.